Hi everyone, it's Aisha Amore and welcome to the Making Your Own interview series, where I speak to self-starters who are making a life of their own and setting up their own businesses. And today I have with me Mickela Sonola, who is a writer amongst other amazing things, and she's going to be telling us about that soon. And she also just happens to be a fellow member of the Freelance HER 100 program. She's in the same cohort as me. And the Freelance HER 100 program is a business accelerator program for women based in Greater Manchester who would like to start up or build up or scale up a business in a tech, digital, creative, and media space. And it's going so well. And we are about halfway through the actual program now. And I've had a lot to think about. I've had a lot to confront with it, actually. A lot of personal things have come up for me with regards to the program. And I'm curious. I'm curious as to how it's gone for Mickela as well. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your business to us right now.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me today. I love chatting to you. So you might have to poke me if I start talking, if I go on strands and all sorts of journeys and whatever that aren't relevant.
I will.
Good. That's your job, remember. What do? I suppose I create spaces for people who want to write, whether they're, people that write in their journal every day and it's just for kind of healing or therapy, or people that want to write to publish, publish to friends and family, or maybe they've got kind of wider ambitions to publish books and so on. And I create these spaces that they can gather their writing, gather their stories, and hopefully also get feedback and support. So I do that through workshops. I do feedback on manuscript assessments, and I do a little bit of writing, writers coaching, really. I suppose it is one-to-one, where basically I look at where they are, I read a little bit about what they're writing, and then we might work together and create a kind of a map and for them to kind of anchor their ideas in, because often these things are really lofty, aren't they? You're just thinking, oh
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine the amount of stories that come to mind, and trying to make it all relate and flow. I think that would definitely be like a massive challenge if I ever wanted to write a book, and I believe there is a book somewhere within me. But yeah, I can definitely see how valuable it would be to have someone who could see the bigger vision of the collections, of the stories and things that people put together. And yeah, now on that topic though, because I feel like I've never heard of this job, even though I'm sure it's something that plenty of people do. But I feel like I didn't realize that. I just always envisioned that anyone who wanted to write just wrote and then sent it to a publisher, and the publisher went, yes, I like it, but I think you need to tweak the story a little bit, and then the writer fixed it, and then it sort of like gets finished that way. And to have you, I'm wondering, how is it that you recognize that your value? How did you recognize your value in that process to then create the space where you're doing this now?
It's an interesting question, kind of segues to why I joined Freelance HER 100, which was because I wanted to start up my own independent publishing company. But to go back a little bit, is that I think when you're looking at books and stories and whatever from the outside of the publishing industry, it seems we have a picture where a writer spends years on their kind of battling with their manuscript all on their own, and then they send it to a publisher offers them a deal and they get an agent, or they and then they work with the editor for a couple of months and then it's published. Well, the reality is that there are so many steps before you even get to the point where you pitch it out or send it out. And from my perspective, the kind of mainstream publishing industry is a very small and very limited world with gatekeepers who historically have you know, favoured the mainstream and favoured white men, favoured white women, that kind of culture. Now, this isn't new. That, you know, I mean, a few years ago, there was a sort of big hoo-ha about the lack of representation in the publishing industry, and not just in terms of people publishing books, but also writers as well, and the stories within those books. And there's been so much good work that's been done as well. So to kind of step back, and where I found that there was a value is that writing is this it feels like such a personal thing, and we attach it. You know, when we write something, it kind of feels like our child, our baby. And what I help do is kind of help the writer step back a little bit. Okay. Say, right, this is actually not you. It's a thing that you have created, and let's have a look at what's really working. And I do it, and I think it's really important to create those safe, supportive spaces, because a lot of people, I cannot tell you how many times I have somebody in one of my workshops that turns up and says, I haven't written for 20 years because I wrote a story at school and my teacher said it was wrong and it was rubbish. Wow. Because, you know, and it's like one of the first things I say in my workshops is we don't care about punctuation, we don't care about grammar, we don't care about any of that stuff. There is a time and a place, you know, like, you know, Hemingway says, write drunk, edit sober. We want to get those ideas. We want to get those ideas out. So
it makes sense. And I think I really like your analogy of people feeling like it's part of them, and almost like and it translates to something that I've had on my mind a lot recently, which is how much I treated my son as though he was me and like an extension of me. And because he's about 6 years older than the younger one, I put like a lot of expectations on him. And I've been doing a lot more work. I've been listening to, I forgot the name of the woman, but she is spearheading conscious parenting and trying to be really aware as to what's motivating me to respond to him or react to him or relate to him in certain spaces. And I recognized that there was so much of myself that I had bound into his identity, the way I imagine some writers bind themselves to what it is that they've written and what it means and what it reflects and what does this say about me, rather than thinking of, oh, okay, I've helped create this entity, but its purpose is so much more beyond me. And it's not, unless you're writing in a journal just for yourself, if you're creating something that you're expecting other people to read, as well as, you know, like just like I've had my child and I'm expecting him to live his own life as an individual, you sort of need to let it be what it is and sort of like be what it's going to be.
Absolutely. And also I think from my end, I have to be aware that whatever they're writing, whether it's fiction, whether it's memoir, poetry, that there might be things tied up within their experience, that they've the life that they've experienced so far. And so I think it's really important when you're helping people to develop their voices and to find or rediscover the voices. I think we always know what our voices are. It's just somewhere along the line it's been sort of stamped out or whatever, or some pasted over, and it's about rediscovering that voice and kind of, you know, and we have to make sure that when we're looking at them, we're trying to improve writing, that we're not destroying that inner voice that's meant to come out.
That is so valid. You know, that is so valid.
And it has to be. And one of the kind of things that I think is interesting is that, so for example, there's an agency run by Black people for Black writers called the Good Literary Agency. And during the pandemic, they have had 80% more submissions.
What?
Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that, you know, that when there has been, we've been furloughed, we've not been unable to work, we have probably been, in terms of financially poor but time rich, and people have been writing their stories, and people want to share, whether it's with their family, whether it's with a kind of a sort of freak family that they've kind of developed over the kind of their personality and the weird things that they do. You know, online groups that you just think nobody else knows me like you do. You do. It's like some remote person in, you know, Iceland. Whether it's that or whether they kind of like, yeah, I want to be the next J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
You know, but people have been sitting down and telling those stories. And I think, so this was, I was going to talk about, so why I joined the Freelance 500 was because I've been talking about wanting to set up a publishing company. And it was like, I don't want to print books though. I was like, well, why do you want to do a publishing company? No, I don't want to do books. It's actually for educational materials and mainly for digital resources, things that support educators to really get the students engaged in literacy.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Like I feel like I see the space that you're attempting to occupy, and I do think it's one that, like, I feel like I'm quite critical of the educational system right now, but I think I'm thinking of my experience as a child at primary school relative to the experience of my sons as a child in primary school. And I think about the VHS video that my mother's got scurried away somewhere of me playing one of the little pigs, and the backdrop is made out of like cardboard that we've painted ourselves, you know, as like school kids. And I think I was the one with the house of straw, you know, just rough life, you know. But and I'm thinking about the experience and the engagement that I had with literacy through that whole experience, and how I don't see those experiences being replicated or replaced or evolved within my son's experience. Because when I see the English work they give them, it is, and I know the last year has been novel and it's not what we would consider typical, but even before that, the way that they engage with a lot of education in general is so systemic and doesn't allow for that holistic engagement of being able to connect the dots of how things relate to life. I feel like that space isn't there. So I think
I think you could, I was just going to say, I think you could do a whole series of podcasts about what you're saying there, and we could go down the rabbit hole with it. I think it's very interesting the way that the Tory government has made the changes, some terrible, awful changes in the educational system. And the irony being that had they left it alone and carried it on evolving progressively rather than taking us back 100 years, our children that are going to school now would be having a better experience of homeschooling.
I think so. I completely agree.
And I really believe that. I mean, I'm not going to go on about it because it just really riles me up, because I had one kid go through one system and things change the year my son was doing his GCSEs and then again A-levels. And I think he suffered because of that. I suppose what I've learned through kind of 20 plus years of workshops is that, why do I keep getting individuals turning up to my workshops who claim to be dyslexic, as English as a second language, who have all of these other barriers, but still want to write and write brilliantly? What is that all about? And what I found that I'm really good at, and I think it's because I'm dyslexic myself, and that was never recognized. So it wasn't like I didn't have special colored paper, or, you know, I was just called lazy, really. Oh, you've not done your work, you know, and that's fine. But what it's made me really conscious about is that I want to remove the barriers that individuals have who face very specific challenges with literacy. And I think that, so in terms of the publishing company, so there's the kind of e-workbooks that I want to develop, but I also want to develop projects, because we are using the tip of the iceberg in terms of new media and social media. There's so much more we can do to teach people to reach audiences, especially audience who have been historically disenfranchised by the mainstream.
I think
They're
so.
just
I completely agree.
and let down. And I've got I just think I'm somebody that can come up with, innovative and creative ways to get people to engage with literacy, to
I
make
vote that
their
you
own
own it.
games.
I vote that you own it and just go, I am somebody who has come up with all of these games. You're already someone. I don't think you feel it. I think that's who you are. You're already working towards making that reality. And the point you make about us just being on the tip of the iceberg of the things that are out there, I think it's so important. I think it's so important to highlight, because just as you said, the publishing world is big, but it's small, kind of thing. Like there are a lot of books out there, and there are a lot of writers out there. We're not lacking in talent at all.
No,
and we're not lacking in subjects, or there doesn't seem to be money lacking in publishing. Books are published. In this pandemic, I have bought about 5 newly published books, so it is there, but there is something to, because the big publishing houses have their own ethos, and they want to preserve, to be honest, they want to preserve the reputation, they want to preserve their business. So the desire to shift the status quo isn't necessarily highly enforced. And I think you see that very much in the way technology is being used. I was reading an article, there's a magazine that I get called Kinfolk, which I absolutely love. I think you'll enjoy it. And one of the articles that they had this quarter was talking about how all websites look the same right now, where you go on there and it like, well, not all websites, but most websites follow like a template of, you have this big image that's really nice, and it's usually a whitish type background, and then you have a bit of sort of like body text going through it, and that's what websites look like now. And they sort of like had a bit of a reminiscing piece looking at websites back in the early 2000s, where everyone was just building whatever they want. I remember having a free website, and like you could customize your MySpace account, and you got to see like different personalities. I remember you could have like rainfall on the screen. Like there were ridiculous things you could do with these websites.
You're
and
not
just
going to believe it. Sorry.
But yeah, I was just thinking, like, it's just thinking about, even though the new websites are so much more, like, they are easier to navigate, and they are informed by the way human beings have been using it, but there is something about, in favor of efficiency and financial planning, you end up with like a monotony, and human beings are not monotonous. Like we're just not. We're just different by nature. It's literally impossible for us to be the same, and for it to make it seem like, oh, but this is what everybody does and this is what everybody wants, is something that shines really strongly to me when I look at society as a whole right now. So you wanting to develop something that is able to cater to people who are different, rather than trying to get them to fit in to what's already here, I think is outstanding.
I mean, I would argue that actually that, we have more neurodiversity than not, and that when we're teaching, and actually when you go through, I recently, a few years ago, I did a PGCE because I knew certain things were working and certain things weren't, and I wanted to know why.
Wow.
And I also then experienced how broken some parts of the education system were.
Oh, wow.
I thought, I don't think I want to be here.
Right.
So hence me looking for another way to kind of do the work that I want to do and I believe is really important. But losing my thread, what was I talking about?
Because I was talking about how wanting to respond to the different ways that people need information, rather than just the monotony. Yeah.
Okay. So that was a tangent I nearly went off on there, about the PGC. But one thing that I did learn was that my methods of doing things in various different various different ways. So for example, is I might show in a workshop, I might show 3 prompts, but they won't all be text prompts. There might be one that's a picture. There might be an array of objects they choose. I mean,
wow.
I worked in an aging, a community centre for aging clients, and I did a writing workshop. Now there's a lot of people with arthritis who, with dementia. I mean, there were sort of octogenarians and above, and I just went around the room with a tray, and on the tray it had just various things. And at the last minute, I mean, I had like, a watch, some dice, just various, a ring, some smelly and stuff. And at the last minute, I was like, it looks a bit bare, and I threw a ball of wool. And oh my gosh, what I got from the ball of wool.
No way.
Yes, because you then suddenly had people who you'd start to talk to them and they go, well, I said, I can write down what you have to say. You don't have to be able to write, you just let me. And I had my notebook ready to scribe, and they go, well, I've got nothing to say. I've really done nothing with my life, really. And I said, okay, that's fine. I says, can you have a look at my tray? And so many women would pick up the ball of wool and said, I knitted all my baby's clothes.
Oh my goodness.
Or they'd talk about, oh yeah, during the war, I worked in a munitions factory and I did this and I did that. Or, and you'd be like,
oh wow,
you don't do anything.
Have you written about this somewhere? I totally would love to hear about this story.
I'm telling you now.
I would love, oh God, I would love to hear so much more about it.
What I'm talking about. And it doesn't have to be a massive book about that. But you know what was great? It was that we were able to put together postcards that reminded the visitors to that centre all the things that they'd done to contribute so far. Because
that's amazing.
They didn't see themselves as contributors to society anymore.
Oh wow, I feel like you need to like get your methods down and have a bunch of people that you train up to utilize your methods, so you can spread even further out.
Thank you for articulating exactly what I'm trying to do. So that's
there you go, works out.
So the workbooks are part of the workbooks. Then you might need training for those. Then you might need, you might need a kind of rolling. You want to keep it fresh, right?
Yeah,
then there's also, how do you engage young people who really don't read anymore, as in books. You want them to get you want to get them skilled up with being able to articulate themselves there and speak in a language that they're able to, that's going to serve them when they get older. But you know what, they are reading. We're just shoving down their throats stuff that they're not interested in, but they are reading. My own experience about games, it was a battle with my son, who's 21 now. Constantly I was so worried about his isolation, about all of these kind of things. And I finally realized that, well, I did a few things. One, comic books and graphic novels are reading.
Yes.
And the other thing was that if I stopped judging the amount of time or when he was on his computer playing games with his friends, and I'm looking around just in case he's around, he can hear me, and I would just stand by his door and listen. And what I was listening to were real complex conversations and
so cool.
plans and team play that was going on. Get this, get that. No, you must go there, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't make any sense to me, but it was making sense to them. He was working as part of a team. And while I still think that children and young people spend far too much time gaming, and there are other things more interesting to do. I don't think that we should be going old school and saying, oh, we take the computer. No, I think, one of the things I did.
Thinking about that, I read something recently talking about screen time. And I had read something previously that had said something like, up to 2 hours is okay. Any more than that, it's just like, oh, it's bad. The brains are going to turn into mush. I'm exaggerating, but it was something like that. And that led to me always thinking, oh my God, on some days my son is on the TV for like on a weekend, he can easily watch 6 hours of TV. Like, because I'm just like, I'm doing other stuff. He might go to have lunch or something, but he's just going through it. And recently I read something else that said up to 4 hours it did really make a difference. And I'm a great believer, like, I know that you can find research to support almost anything, because I
Yes,
found research that's also
exactly.
said, leave them alone to play for the whole day because they're socializing. And in terms of physical activity, they can't, even if they play like the physically active games, it's still better than sitting down and doing nothing, you know. So you can find stuff all over the place. But what I definitely take from what you're saying is that being able to look at the essence of the experience rather than the actual actions that you're seeing.
Yeah.
So I see that with my nieces and my nephews, because I used to be mega critical of them. I'm like, why are you sitting down playing games? But when you hear them with their friends, like, they're really socializing, they're chatting, they're laughing, they're doing stuff together. And I think being able to see the different dimensions that we communicate as people, and being able to see the different ways that we can engage with the world, I think that's part of the challenge that we have right now. The amount of ways that we engage with our external self as well as our internal selves really has just really just shrunk. Like, it's just shrunk down. Like, I remember, like, phone calls were like a thing that a lot of people in my life just didn't do. Like, they just didn't do them. Like, text me it or whatever. And I just get tired of texting and whatnot. But luckily with the pandemic, because of Zoom and stuff like that, people are a bit more comfortable, you know, like Zooming and doing all of that. And I think it's really, really, I think it's so valid, the work that you're building up to do, to be able to ensure that we as a society create a space that everyone can engage in.
Absolutely.
Rather than trying to get everyone to sort of like forcefully feed into whatever is on ground. So that's, yeah.
I mean, I think there's a hierarchy in learning, in engagement. We put these, and that's why we feel as parents, we sometimes start to feel shame when our child is spending this too much time. What's this? Look, what's important is, what are they engaging with? That's really important. You know, how is that? You know, it's actually being that you're connected to what they're doing and where they are online, you know, and what they're letting into their kind of psyches. And the TV thing, do you know what? The discovery that we could just watch a program with them that perhaps they wanted to watch, but we weren't sure about, that by watching it with them, the conversation that happened throughout or after was actually really, really good for their comprehension, for their growth, and all sorts of things. And that you know, that those little soft places that we I suppose we embody as parents are really important.
And I think it's valid that people see that as a thing to do for society as a whole then, because I know we're speaking about the specific context of being parents right now, but even just in society in general, and creating those spaces to have conversation, to have more considered have a more considered understanding and acceptance of the people around us. And what came to my mind right now was, a couple of months ago, I'd gone to, I think it's Your Valley, I'd gone to, and I was just sitting by a lake there, and a lovely old man. He would have been easily in his 80s or so. He was just going out for his regular walk. And my daughter was sleeping in the pram next to me, and I was just sat down there reading a magazine. And he was like, "Oh, she looks gorgeous." And I had a choice, because I had left the house because I wanted to be left alone. And I deliberately timed it to when her nap was going to be, so that no one was having to babysit her, but she was sleeping and I could read my magazine in peace. And for whatever reason, I just went, you know what, I'm going to have a conversation with this man. And we ended up speaking for about an hour and a bit. And he only left because he was getting tired and wants to make sure he made it home in time. And it was just wonderful, though, because the kind of things that I learned about, because he was someone who had been a member of a rambling group, and he had worked in the mines, and he had also been part of a geology club. And he was telling me about how, in the specific space we were, he was like, "You see that lake over there? it actually links to that lake, and the space in between it is fake. And it really had me, really consider something I'd never done. So a lot of the time when I go out now, I wonder why a road had to go a certain way. And you would find it's because there perhaps was a tree there at some point that meant that, and they didn't want to knock it down, or why a building set up in a certain way. And it's amazing that that's come from me choosing to engage with someone in a way that people wouldn't usually do right now. And there is so much to gain from that. So I'm all for this. Like, you need to set this agency up sharpish. We need to. So actually, on that topic, then, because I know we're about to wrap up. Since setting up this agency is a big part of why you joined the program, we've got about 6 weeks left on the program, and I'm sure you found it immensely engaging so far. Where are you feeling like you're going to feel like you've got a win from this program in 6 weeks? Like, what would you definitely like to have ticked on your list?
I think you mean like as physical actions.
Yeah, like what would be the thing that you definitely want to have done or be prepared to have done at the end of the program?
So my physical action is, because I say that because it's really just one main thing, but there's so many other things that I'm learning and putting into place. But the one physical thing I want to do is to set up the company Sonola and Jones as a limited company.
Okay.
So that's my end goal for this. And the kind of barrier for me doing that was this idea that, I needed to know exactly what I was doing. I needed to refresh. And it was the weirdest thing was, it was around Christmas time when I turned around to my partner and I said, I think I need to do a course or something.
Really?
And then suddenly I saw the Freelance HER ad on Instagram, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to get in. What do? I'm just a teacher. I was very much in the, I'm just the this, I'm just the that. And I sat down and just typed up. It forced me to sit down and typed up what it was that I wanted to do. And then I got a place, and since then it's just been like, my desk is chaos, and every weekend I think I'm going to sort all this chaos out and make sense of it, and every weekend I just give myself another task. So yeah, it's to have that company set up and to really understand. That's a physical action, but also to understand what my role is and a pathway. So so the kind of, what are the practical, because you can talk to the cows come home about, I have a dream and this is what I'm going to do.
I completely
what are the
get
physical things that I'm going to do? So I've got a book to publish in sort of July, August time.
Cool.
I have workbooks as well I will have them ready for September, so I can sort of send things out, but also practice some. So there's one of the things I really want to do is to use literacy and football, and use ideas in football and the storytelling around football with literacy. And you can do numeracy obviously as well. And kind of blend that in. And I've come up with a lot of ideas, but I've not tested them. So I'm kind of September, I'm looking to do a kind of series of workshops with, these are for sort of primary age pupils.
Oh wow, that is
it's just being creative and encouraging people to think outside of their limited. The problem is having trained as a teacher, I also know that teachers are so overwhelmed, and that's another reason why I think that the workbooks and the resources help, because it's about saying, I know that you don't have time to think of this and this. Here, this is what I've done. Oh, you're on them.
I think that's immensely interesting, and I'm so excited by that, because we're in a football family. We're all about football over here. So you've got like some test people over here already. Yay. If you're looking, but I think you're a creative and like artistic through and through. Like, you just seem to have it just pouring out of you, all these off-kilter ideas that just definitely show real potential. They all show potential.
They've not always stood in my favor.
But you're willing to go there, though. I think it's that bravery and that willingness to be like, let's try this to make something happen. And I think there's something that's really encouraging and really, there's something really mothering about it. I know some women find that quite a facetious way to be described, but I think there's something that shows like a great deal of care. Like you just want people to be able to enjoy and live life and experience life and engage with life. And I see that.
Yeah,
I see that through and through.
That's a compliment. I see myself as someone who nurtures people's creativity and gets them out of this. We carry around these myths that creatives have to be alcoholics or suffering or in desperate states or whatever. And actually, no,
ears and non-sustainable relationships.
Yeah, it belongs to all of us. Yes. We can all write our stories. We can all, we can be the author of our stories. Nobody else should be telling us who we are. We need to tell the people around us who we are. We need to find a voice to do that, whether it's through, lots of metaphors and creative, lyrical poetry, or whether it's from it's memoir. It doesn't matter. But we do need to express ourselves as humans. That I know for sure.
And on that note, like, what a smashing way to wrap things up. Just bang on time. Like, that is, oh God, I could speak to you all day, Mickela. I really could.
Right back at you.
But yeah, thank you so much for giving me this time today. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I think people are gonna love hearing you speak. So take it easy. I'm gonna speak to you again soon.
Yes, I hope so. Thank you.